Beyond 1914 is a database which takes over 2,500 records of the University of Sydney that's intended to engage the public about the First World War and its effect on Australian society. And what Heurist has enabled us to do is to actually help to visualise those life stories. Through the Heurist database, we can put in all these what you might call eventlets in people's lives, like birth, death, obviously coming to university, going to school, going to war, what one did, people's careers afterwards. And then through the magic of Heurist, that's all I can say because I don't know the technicalities of it, this is then transformed into showing a person's life, both through a timeline as well as where in the world they go. Then by creating, as we have here, a website, so a front end, we have actually been able to bring this information, these life stories, to a much broader public than we might have if the records are just left in an archive, as important as that is. So really, without Heurist, we wouldn't have Beyond 1914, the website. The question for me is that as a historian, what can Heurist do for my discipline? And historians are very known for not using technology in some ways. So to be given a database like Heurist, where you have to actually fill in all these fields, which is again not really something that cultural historians tend to do. It might be a little bit of a burden, but the results afterwards are wonderful because the more detail you put into the fields that are created by Heurist, and which, of course, in discussion with the Heurist team, we've come up with what sort of fields would answer the types of questions we want to ask of all this information, this archival information. This detail comes out not as individualised detail, but as someone's life, as the life of a group of people, the potential to start to explore connections between one person and another. In terms of Beyond 1914, that could mean that a whole group of people who didn't know one another before end up in a field somewhere in France. And you can see that on this database, that they're there. Then, of course, they disperse. But what we can do if we have that detail about people's lives is to see, did that experience of being in Ypres, for example, on the Western Front in France, have a lifelong effect in their careers or anything else afterwards? So I think one of the real advantages for me with Heurist is that the team is actually located at the University of Sydney, where I am a historian. There is the means for collaboration to discuss my research questions and how they can be handled by Heurist. And what I've found is that, I, as a historian who treats evidence and sources in a particular way, will have research questions. But the Heurist team, who knows how Heurist works, will then say, well, have you thought about this? So you can actually start to develop new research questions, which of course we always want to do. It's opening up vistas of knowledge, I suppose, at many levels. At the very beginning, when you decide these are the fields I want, and then through discussion with the Heurist team, they say, what about this? Yes, I want that and I want it to do this. And then once it's translated into a website, you start to see new questions which you can actually answer through Heurist. And for me, that's been wonderful. With the records of the Book of Remembrance, there's an enormous amount of detail there about people's lives and what they did. And Heurist makes sense of it.